Welcome to Jar Your Mind. My name is Joey. In the following podcast, I interviewed Dr. Sanjiv Chopra. Sanjiv is a professor and former faculty dean for continuing medical education at Harvard Medical School and specializes in hepatology and gastroenterology. He is also a speaker, author, and thought leader, and a wonderful storyteller, as you will soon learn in this conversation, as we talk about coffee, health, happiness, and purpose. Thank you for being here, and please grab a cup of coffee, relax, or go for a nice walk and enjoy the podcast with Sanjiv Chopra. I went downstairs and got myself a cup of coffee.
Oh, good.
And I wanted to show you, I don't know if it's backwards, but it says, be happy always.
Yeah.
Be happy always.
There's Channel 5, ABC in Boston, has a award-winning show called Chronicle. And this lady, Nicole Estefan, Emmy award-winning producer, reporter, has interviewed me before on other books. And she sent me a text 6 months ago, Sanjiv, I'm doing a show on coffee. Are you interested? I said, Nicole, I wrote a book. So I sent it to her. She came home with the video, interviewed me like for 40 minutes. It's a 30-minute segment, and she interviewed 9 other people, but it's been aired about 5 times. And then she even put up my book, which I didn't expect her to. And then she said, final question, Sanjiv, what's the best way to have coffee? I said, Nicole, the best way to have coffee is to have coffee with a friend. And that went viral.
That went viral.
I said, I'll give you the scientific answer.
That is beautiful. I actually was listening to an interview with you with your brother, and you mentioned that because he was interviewing you on his and talking about the book, and so that was great. I learned a lot about coffee actually by listening to that, and so I wanted to also wear this shirt today, which is a local coffee shop
Wow.
called Kunjami, and it says love. So it reminded me because your viral message that yes, you can find happiness in coffee just by having it with a friend, right?
Yeah.
So are you drinking coffee? Are we friends drinking coffee together?
I've already had 2 cups, but I'll have another one before 3. I can't drink after 3 p.m. Then I'm up all night.
Yeah.
But I've had 3 or 4 cups.
So I recently did a little program, a health program, and part of it was not allowed to drink coffee. And I suffered for 2 weeks. I mean, I think it was literally the caffeine withdrawal, which I don't even drink that much coffee. I maybe drink 2 cups maybe a morning and I'm done. But it was rough for me. I mean, it was really rough.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I think 2 cups, and you stop suddenly. Yeah, it's caffeine withdrawal. If you have headache, myalgia, feeling blah, do I have the flu? That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
When I wrote my coffee book, I wanted to get it out there before a colleague at Mayo Hopkins, UCLA, beats me to the punch. And my wife kept saying, this should be a coffee table book. I said, we'll see. And about 6 months ago, got connected to Carlos Slim. You know about him? He's from Mexico.
Okay.
Between 2010 and 2012, he was the richest man on this planet. And he's now the 10th richest, more than 100 billion. But amazing guy, humble, philanthropist. So I said, Carlos, do you drink coffee? He said, I love coffee. I said, I'll send you a couple of my books signed. And he sends me an email 3 weeks later, Sanjiv, I love the book. And then he says, we're going to convert this through La Ruse, which is the second biggest publisher in the world, into a Spanish coffee table hardcover book. It has like 90 stunning photographs. Incredible.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
Then he puts his name, Carlos. He puts hugs, Carlos. He puts his cell phone number. It's like I don't have to go through 3 executive assistants to reach it. And they're now promoting it in Mexico and Colombia, and then he'll promote it after 6 months in 20 of the other Spanish-speaking countries where he has an imprint. Amazing guy.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, Debbie, when we started talking about you, Debbie just speaks the world of you, by the way. So
That's sweet.
I really appreciate
Yeah.
you, responding to her email about that. And she was saying about the coffee book because, like, on your website, I didn't see anything about it. But she's like, "No, Joey, it's like a coffee table book. It's a coffee," and she's
Now it's become
so.
a coffee book, but it's in Spanish. I hope they'll translate it into
Ah,
English.
yeah.
But it's so creative in the section on the heart where I say it lowers the rate of atrial fibrillation, improves heart failure. They have these coffee beans, like an EKG tracing, going into the heart, surrounded by coffee beans,
Oh,
and
that's
coming up.
brilliant. That's
Brilliant.
well, I think everything is, I'm so into visualization and meditation. And so I think, we really communicate very well through images and that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
I wrote a book years ago called The Big Five, based on scientific evidence. If you do that, you live longer. So it's coffee, exercise, vitamin D3, nuts, and meditation. And I did about 25 shows, and some were 10 minutes, some were 20 minutes. And I told the moderator at the end, give me 10 seconds to summarize, because it's only five things, but people may have difficulty remembering. And they all did that. So I said, here's the deal. On a good sunny day, go for a brisk walk to your favorite Java shop. Now you got the exercise, the vitamin D from the sun, and the coffee. Number four, don't go nuts remembering this. That's number four. And before you go, meditate. That's number five. And there's an ancient saying you should meditate once a day. And if you don't have time to do that, you should meditate twice a day. And they all remembered it. Meet me 6 months later. Sanjiv, five things. We
That's
have to make
great.
it fun and easy, right?
Yeah. Well, and it is, because I've been a personal trainer most of my entire life. And
Yeah.
I, I'd say the number one thing I tell or told people was, it is the simple things that make the hugest difference. It
Sure.
really is.
It really is true.
It's the simple things that, and,
Yeah.
and even when it comes to happiness, which is what I do want to get in with you today, but it is, there's a part of the book that I want to talk about when you talk about the difference between happiness, joy, and bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the happiness is
It's
the day to
simple
day,
stuff.
right?
It's not expensive, high tech. It's simple things we can do to make ourselves happy and to radiate happiness.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
think the most successful people in this world, there are two traits. They're happy, then you're more creative, you sleep better, you have a better immune system, you make better friends. And the second one, as we all know, is grit, which is having passion and perseverance for a long term articulated goal. Brilliant TED talk by Angela Duckworth, her research, whether it's students or West Point graduates, those who have grit succeed a lot in life. So I combine it into grit and happiness. That's it.
Yeah, I know in your book you talk a lot, uh, the two most important days, you talk a lot
Yeah.
about resilience. Is that the grit, resilience and grit kind of
In a way, yeah,
interchangeable
yeah.
or, yeah.
To some extent, yeah, to some extent. I mean, resilient is, I think, bouncing back from major adversity,
Mm,
whereas grit is you may not have faced adversity. Now you say, okay, I'm going to write a book. And then as you're writing it, there are obstacles, or you can't get a publisher, but you persevere and
mm,
persevere. And then you get rejected. And the person who rejects says, this happened to me when I wrote a book on liver disorders, single author, small book, sent it to five publishers, and four of them said, oh, we already have major textbooks in hepatology. And the fifth guy said, I'm going to come from New York. I'd like to host you for lunch at Legal Seafood. So I'm thrilled. And we sit down, and he said, we're not interested in your book. I said, Jim, you came from New York to Boston to host me for lunch? He said, I love your writing style. Every sentence is weighted. Would you consider editing a GI pathophysiology book for second year medical students around the world? I said, send me a contract. And I said to myself, when every adversity is the seed of greater success, I'm going to have now two books. I could have given up, right? But I did it. And the liver disorders of the liver got translated into Portuguese, Italian, Czech,
hmm,
Japanese. So you just got to persist.
that's excellent. Well, let's backtrack just a little bit because I want to start with talking about Dharma And I know you did the TED Talk. It was beautiful, and I highly recommend people go and watch that. But I want to know, and I do want to talk about purpose and everything today. So, I mean, what is Dharma, and how did you know what it was for your life?
So dharma is a Sanskrit word, and it is hard to translate, but it encompasses vocation, moral compass, authenticity, truth. And I was 12 years of age studying at arguably the preeminent all boys school in New Delhi, St. Columbus High School, Irish Christian Brothers, amazing teachers. And on a weekend, a very sultry, warm weekend, I played a cricket match. And then Sunday evening around 5:30, I'm a little tired. I'm reading Reader's Digest, and I'm not feeling that great. Take a short nap, 30, 40 minutes. I wake up, open my eyes, and I'm horrified. I can't see. I'm blind. So I nudged my brother. I said, Deepak, I can't see. And he must have done visual threat and figured, he's 3 years older, that I'm not faking it. And he started to cry. I have one brother, he's turned blind. And we were staying with our uncle and aunt in New Delhi. My parents were 200 miles away. They wanted us to finish our schooling at this great school. So my uncle takes me in the car, drives to military hospital. There the doctors examine me, and they don't have the foggiest idea as to what's going on. I can hear them talking, and they're even saying, maybe it's hysterical. We can't find anything wrong. And I'm a happy kid. I'm a good student, a very good athlete. Finally, they connect with my father. This is 1961. And he was the most brilliant physician I've ever come across. Specialty was cardiology, but he knew everything in medicine. And very calmly, he said, tell me everything that's happened to Sanjiv in the last couple of months. He said, no, he's been fine. He said, no. Any injuries, accidents, medications? Oh, yes. He had an injury to his right leg with a sharp object 6 days ago, taken to the casualty ward. He got stitches. He said, did he get an antibiotic? So they looked in the records and they mentioned it. He asked another question, did he get a tetanus shot? And very proudly they said, yes, he was given a tetanus shot. And a final question, he said, what kind? Anti-tetanus serum, ATS, or anti-tetanus toxoid, ATT? So they looked in the records and they said, anti-tetanus serum. And I have no idea how my father divined it. He said, Sanjiv is having a rare idiosyncratic reaction to the anti-tetanus serum. It's a localized form of serum sickness, occurs maybe 1 in 250,000 or 500,000. Both his optic nerves are involved. They're ready to burst. Start an intravenous right now and give him massive doses of corticosteroids. And that was done. And about 10 hours later, my vision returned. And the next morning I said, you know what? I want to be a healer like my father. I've told this story, Joey, to professors of ophthalmology at Harvard, at UCLA, at Mayo. And they go, oh my God, it probably was not even a footnote in the textbooks of ophthalmology. And had your father not intervened in that fashion, you could have been blind for life. So that is how I found my dharma. But there's another beautiful story about how dharma can change. So the Indian government, some half a century ago, has gone all over India inoculating people against smallpox. There are a number of holdouts. There's a villager in the foothills, small village, small farm, foothills of the Himalayas. And he says, God ordains who'll be diseased and who'll be healthy. You cannot inoculate me or my family. So they go, oh my God, what are we going to do? So they discuss it amongst themselves. And they decide we're going to invade his hut tomorrow morning. Early in the morning, we're going to take the police with us. If he resists, we'll pin him to the ground and forcibly inoculate him. So they arrive and he says the same thing. You cannot inoculate me. God ordains who'll be diseased, who'll be healthy. So they pin him to the ground, rip his shirt, inoculate him. Wife is screaming, kids are screaming. Finally, they're all inoculated. The entire small village is awake, watching this scene. And he turns to the team that inoculated him and he says, please sit down. He tells his wife, make tea for them. And he goes to the back of his vegetable plot and he uproots the juiciest, ripest cucumbers and radishes, cleans them, and offers it to them. And they go, "What are you doing? We invaded your house and we forcibly inoculated you and your family, and now you're treating us like royalty." And this simple villager, he said, "I believe God ordains who will be diseased or healthy. I refused the inoculation. I upheld my dharma. You obviously believed it was your dharma to forcibly inoculate me and my family. Now it is over, and you are guests in my home." How
That's a
beautiful is
beautiful
that? Right?
story. Wow. We can all
True
learn from
story.
that.
Yeah. So
Especially
dharma
right
can
now, what's
change.
going on in the
Yeah.
world. I mean, there's so much division, right, with certain
Division.
ideas. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. Wow. That's a great story. Um, you talk about in your book that happiness is a choice. So I'd like you just to expound on how it's a choice. Do you think most people think it's a choice, or
No, I
and maybe
don't think
talk a little bit about the quotient, the
yeah,
happiness quotient?
yeah, you're so right. I think most people don't think happiness is a choice. Um, Most people also mistakenly think that if they get a new job, a promotion, they move into a bigger house, if they buy a new luxury car, they join a country club, they'll be more happy. And all the research shows, or they win the lottery, 5 million, $10 million with a scratch ticket, $5, they'll be happy. And all the research shows that you'll be happy for a short period of time. And then you gravitate back to your happiness level. And this phenomenon is called hedonic adaptation. We are often on the hedonistic treadmill, and that doesn't do it. In contrast, taking part in meaningful experiences, and that could be a trip to New Zealand and Milford Sound, but it could also be, you know, you or I go to the local coffee shop and meet a friend, and or go to the library or see a concert. We don't have to go all the way to New Zealand. So meaningful experiences and giving away about 10% of your wealth to a charity that resonates for you. I know a gentleman in the town next to where I live, and he used to be at the door at Costco. And as people went with their cart, he would look and say, "Okay, you're all set. You can leave." And with another colleague, they bought an $8 scratch ticket, and they hit $20 million. So he got 10 million. Now this guy is taking care of his mother and sister. For the first time, he's got a passport. He's extremely charitable. And if you see him, you can see the happiness and bliss on his face. He's doing those two things. There are other people who win $10 million and they splurge, and their friends and relatives come out of the woodwork. "How did you get so lucky? Pay for my mortgage." Recently, I read about a gentleman who won $20 million, and at the end of a year, he was miserable. He had blown
Yeah.
most of it away. He had splurged. He didn't save any of it. And this is what he said: "I wish I had never bought that lottery ticket."
Hmm.
So, the happiness quotient is based on studies of monozygotic twins and comparing them with dizygotic twins. And what it says is that 50% of our happiness is inherited. And you know that. You see some families where there are 3 kids and 2 kids are happy and the third one is never happy, inherited different genes. Only 10% is living conditions. That's astounding.
Hmm.
If we have a roof on our head and running water, it doesn't matter whether you live in a mansion in Beverly Hills or the slums of Calcutta or the shanty towns of Jotown. You're happy. Sometimes those people are more happy than
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
Or the movie Slumdog Millionaire, right? How they were celebrating weddings and births and dancing and singing. Only 10%. And 40% is voluntary action. What we can do to serve others, what we can do to make others happy. Gandhi once said, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others."
Hmm.
But even that 50% set point is malleable. And we know that. You know it better than anyone as a personal trainer. Exercise lifts your spirits better than the antidepressants that we currently use. Behavioral cognitive therapy, meditation, but very, very importantly, living with gratitude. And Robert Emmons, considered the father of modern positive psychology, has written a small book called Thanks, how the new science of gratitude can make you happier. He did a large study. He randomized half the people every day for 6 weeks to jot down 3 things they did, random. And the other half, jot down 3 things you're grateful for. And at the end of the 6 weeks, the people who wrote about their gratitude, their happiness quotient went through the roof. Low tech, right? So I tell friends, colleagues, my family, students, go to the local drugstore or stationery store, buy a little book, put your name on it, call it your gratitude journal. You don't even have to do it every day. Every Sunday, as you're looking at what's in store for you the next week, reflect on what transpired the last 7 days. And you'll see so many things you're grateful for, and write it down. It takes 3 minutes.
The simple things, right? It's the simple things. I've done some meditations on gratitude, but it's I would say that I think I take it for granted, because I'm like, oh yeah, of course, gratitude. And everybody knows that gratitude, sure. And you hear this, but to just actually put this into practice, to take that time and to do it on a habitual basis, just like you said, once a week even could make all of the difference,
It takes 3 minutes, 5 minutes.
Yeah, I know. Well, and that's the whole thing with, say, exercise, is it's not once you get to the gym that's the problem. Even if you say it's actually just getting there that is the hardest part, right? So it's not that it's a long time, 3 minutes. Yeah, that's not a long time. But you actually have to start that 3 minutes, right? And that's where the key is, I think, is.
I saw a study about a year ago that people who are fit and do aerobic exercises, they're not overweight, but if they sit at the computer for 7 hours or more in a row, they have increased cardiovascular mortality. Sitting is the new smoking, right? So even if you're having a 1 hour, 2 hour meeting, I tell people after half an hour, okay, let's take a stretch. Let's everyone get up and stretch. You want to use the restroom, you want to get another cup of coffee, check an email, we're going to reconvene in 2 minutes. And it makes such a difference when you do that. The other good thing to do, talking about gratitude, if you start a meeting and there are 8 or 10 people, start with somebody and say, before we start, in 20 seconds, tell us something you're grateful about. Oh my God, everybody's talking about something they're grateful. The energy in the room that started is so simple, right? All these things in life are simple, not high tech.
My dad is a professor at a little school, Pacific University, and he just recently retired, but he would do long lectures and sometimes over an hour, 2 hours long. And so we had this idea that I did, like, I think it was only maybe 2 minutes. I did a recording. And so he would halfway through the lecture put me up on the screen, say, everybody get up. And we would just do some really simple exercises. And I'm telling you, Dad said that people just loved it. And it just was like so funny. I don't know how many times my little
20 years ago, one of the participants at my updated internal medicine annual 7-day course, when 98%, not to brag, 98% of the attendees say this is above average or superior to any other medicine course they have ever attended. Because I incorporate the formula of inform, inspire, integrate. So one of the guys came up on day 2 and he said, this is a great course, but it's so hard to stay awake in the afternoon after lunch. Why don't you get somebody to lead the group through an exercise routine? So we do that now. And we actually list it on the brochure in the schedule as rejuvenation exercise. and people applaud and they get up and they move and they twist and they they clap and
Yeah.
they often say, "This is we've never gone to a medicine course 7 days away. Every afternoon this is happening. Thank you, thank you." Suggestion of one of the attendees.
That's great. That's great. Can you talk about the different types of chemicals that are released in the body for happiness? And it's some of the same as exercise, right? I mean, I know you talk
Yeah,
about there's what, four or
there are
five?
these happy molecules. We all know about endorphins, but there's oxytocin, there's dopamine, which is the reward molecule. If you think you're going to have coffee, even the thought of it might make you happy. If
Yeah.
you think about it on
Coffee
vacation,
equals happiness. Yeah.
yeah. So one of my friends who's very spiritual, and he and I have done a workshop called Invitation to Happiness, came to my home recently. We meet 2 or 3 times a week and have coffee and talk about life. And he said, "I'm doing something new that you should consider trying." So I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I have a regular bath and then I switch the water faucet so I get the ice cold water and I sit there and let it go all over me." And he said, "I started with 5 seconds. I'm up to 2 minutes. I now look forward to it." So that was about 7 days ago. I said, "I'm going to do it." And today was day 6 for me. And I'm up to 55 seconds.
Oh, wow.
And it turns out, and then I looked up the research, he had mentioned it, there's an uptick, there's a surge of dopamine, 250% increase.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I'm feeling so much energized. And I think in 10 days, I'll get up to 2 minutes. I now look forward to it.
That's great.
It's amazing. And then I realized, when I was in medical school, there was a hostel, and each one of us had individual rooms. And at the end of 8 rooms, at the end, on either side, was the bathroom with 4 toilets and 4 showers, but there was no hot water. And in Delhi, in the winter, it got down to 40 degrees. And all my friends would have 2 buckets and they'd fill one with water and put a heating rod, let it heat, then have another bucket with half with cold water, mix the two, wind up with 1.5 large buckets and take their bath. And I said, "You know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to take a cold shower." 5.5 years in the winter, I did it. And I think it helped me. So I'm
Yeah.
getting back into it. And I'm telling all my friends, do it, do it. Dopamine, happy molecules. You'll be happy. You'll find
That's
joy.
great. That's great. I love in your book how you talk about just again, just simple things. And I love the part about pets and how pets, can you talk about the dogs versus the cats in terms of like how,
It turns out, people who love cats are very happy. They
Mhm.
love their cats. People who have dogs love their dogs. It's a member of the family. When the dog passes away, you can see them mourn for months and months and so much grief. In general, people who own dogs are healthier. And I think part of the reason is you take your dog for a walk, right?
Sure.
And we're now realizing that walking is so healthy. You don't have to do strenuous aerobic exercises if you can't, if you have limitations. You have a knee that needs total knee replacement. I just got one 8 weeks ago, and my
That's
right knee
right. How are you
needs
doing with that?
good, good. It's very
Good, good.
slow, but my right knee is now feeling jealous. It's
Oh, I
saying, "What
bet.
about me?"
It's like me
And you know
next,
what
me
I did?
next.
Yeah, what I did, Joey, I wrote a letter to my left knee, thanking it for all these years of service and welcoming my new knee. And I
Oh, I
told the
love it.
orthopedic surgeon, I said, "None of you can touch me till you read the letter." And they loved it. They put it in the chart. The nurses were showing it to other patients. One of my colleagues, who's a tenured professor of medicine at Harvard Medical School, I showed him the letter and he said, "Sanjiv, this is inspiring and moving. You should submit it as a letter to the editor to an orthopedic journal. You may start a movement." So I
Oh,
did.
that's
I sent
great.
last week, see if they like it.
Oh, I
So
love it.
it's gratitude. And then somebody said, "Hello, you got to give your new knee a name. You just can't say my knee, my new knee, my prosthetic knee. I said, you know what a good. So I'm calling it KDIG, KDIG, knee deep in gratitude.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
You
uh,
were asking about the difference between happiness, joy, and bliss, because we often use those terms interchangeably. So,
yes.
happiness is a sensation of feeling internally pleased, but we express it outwardly. You're walking across the street and somebody's walking towards you and they're looking at their iPhone or reading a book and they're smiling. You can tell at least at that instant they're happy.
Mm.
But it's transient. Joy is much more exuberant, sense of euphoria. And bliss is being called perfect happiness, intense joy. It's a sensation where we feel anchored and we feel some kind of resonance with nature and with others. And I think if we want to witness bliss, all we have to do is go to a park and see the kids on the slide and the swings. And this 4-year-old stumbles, bruises his knee, is sobbing. Another 4-year or 5-year-old comes, consoles him. And 20 seconds later, he's back in bliss.
Mm.
It's amazing what we can learn from children. I call children the modern day philosophers. Socrates was one of the first to claim that happiness was not bestowed upon a select few. Prior to that, the prevalent belief was happiness is in the domain for nobility, royalty, poets, philosophers. He says, no, no, no. Everyone is entitled to happiness. And that happiness and virtue are inextricably linked. The ancient Greeks did not use the word happiness. They used a term called eudaimonia, which literally translated means human flourishing, right? You'll flourish if you're happy. The modern day philosophers, I think, are children. So when I give my talk on happiness, living with purpose, and people are taking notes, I said, no, you don't have to take notes. The organizer will share my slides with you. You can use them, you can modify them. You don't have to give me attribution. I call it copy left. And one of the deans at
That's good.
Assumption College in Worcester wrote to me 6 days later, and I encouraged them. Ask your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews to complete the sentence or phrase, happiness is. So, Dr. Chopra, I went over your talk with my husband, but I took your cue and I asked my 5-year-old daughter, what is happiness? And my 5-year-old daughter answered immediately, Mommy, happiness is when the heart feels bigger.
Mm.
Wow.
Wow.
The 2.5-year-old son of one of the surgeons, I gave grand rounds. And now when I'm invited to academic medical centers, they want to listen to any of my liver talks. We've heard it. Want your leadership talk, your happiness talk. So he said, I want to sit down with you and have coffee and go over some things. So we sat down. He said, my son is 2 years, 9 months of age. I asked him, what makes you happy? He said, Daddy, I'm most happy when I'm sharing my toys with my friends.
Wow.
Not even 3. John Lennon, when he was 5, goes to school and the teacher gives the kids an assignment. Write down what you want to be when you grow up. And John Lennon, the Beatle, writes, happy, and he hands it to the teacher. And the teacher says, John, you didn't understand the assignment. And he looks up at the teacher and he says, and you don't understand life. 5 years of age. His mother, every night, she tucked him into bed, said, John, when you grow up, I want you to be happy. And I think the other amazing people we can learn are from fictional characters. Snoopy, Charlie Brown. So Charlie Brown and Snoopy are looking at the sunset, and Charlie Brown says, we only live once. And Snoopy says, wrong. We only die once. We live every day.
Oh, that's
Look at
good.
that.
That's good.
And Milne, remember Milne wrote Winnie the Pooh? And Winnie the Pooh is sitting with Piglet, and he says, if you live to be 100 years, I want to live to be 100 minus 1 day, because I cannot live a day without you. How beautiful and sublime is that friendship?
That's
So we
great.
can learn so much, right, from children.
Yeah. I loved this quote in your book, and I loved how you put poems and some quotes from, and one I hadn't heard from Seneca was begin, and similar to what you just said, was begin at once to live and count each separate day as a separate life.
Yeah.
Begin at once to live and count each day as a separate life. I just thought that was really beautiful. So
One of my favorite quotes is from Gandhi, who said, live as if you're going to die tomorrow. Learn as if you're going to live forever. How good is that, right? Live each day to the fullest. And we are most happy when we are learning. Learn as if you're going to live forever. You're going to learn a foreign language or something. Don't worry. It'll take you 2 years, 3 years. Start on the journey. Start on the journey. Now, he was an amazing individual. You know, Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, Aung San Suu Kyi, the young people in the Arab Spring in Tunisia, Egypt. I talked to them, and who's your greatest inspiration? They said, oh, Gandhi and his life. And he led by example. I wrote a book called Leadership by Example. And I didn't put this story back then, but there's a story of him sitting in his ashram, and this mother walks 8 miles in the dust and the heat with her 12-year-old son. She says, Gandhiji, look at my son. He's gained a lot of weight. He eats a lot of sugar. Would you please tell him not to eat sugar? He adores you. He worships you. He'll do anything for you. So Gandhi looks up. He says, come back in a week. So away they go. A week later, they trudge 8 miles in the dust and the heat. And Gandhi says to the boy, son, don't eat sugar. It's not good for your health. He says, Gandhiji, from this moment onwards, I've given up sugar. He leaves the room. The mother stays behind. Says, Gandhiji, thank you for saying that to my son. Can I ask you a question? He said, sure. So we were here a week ago. You could have said the same thing to my son then. And Gandhi whispers into her ear, at that time, I had not given up sugar.
very good.
Right? Example. Not
Be
do
an
as
example.
I say, do as I do.
I love that. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, in terms of that quote, that and just that living each day to the fullest, what can you say? Because I know forgiveness is big with you too, for finding happiness, forgiving. But what about being kind and forgiving to ourselves when we feel like, say, we've wasted a whole day, or sometimes I feel like I'm not doing enough, and so yeah, live every day to the fullest. But like, how can we?
What a great question, Joy, because life is chaotic and hectic, and you can have the best plans and then they can be sabotaged. Something happens. I think forgiveness begins by forgiving yourself. And if you can't forgive yourself for mistakes we've made, errors we've made, then you can't forgive others. And Gandhi again said, forgiveness is the attribute of the strong. It is not for the weak. The Buddha said, resentment is like holding a hot coal with the intent of hurling it at somebody who offended you. That person's moved on. Meanwhile, you're burning your hand. And to me, the greatest example, or one of the greatest examples of forgiveness, is Nelson Mandela, in prison for 27 years. And when he's released, Mr. Mandela, do you harbor resentment against your captors? He said, I have no bitterness. I have no resentment. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. He said, as I walked out the gate towards freedom, I looked back at myself and I said to myself, if you still harbor resentment, you'll still be in prison. And there's a beautiful quote. It says, to forgive is to set the prisoner free and then discover the prisoner was you. To forgive is to set the prisoner free and then discover the prisoner was you. Not easy to do, right? You and I see road rage.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Wayne Dyer, amazing guy, right? Motivational speaker, author. He used to say, if somebody cuts you on the road, pretend. It's not easy, but at least we should try. Pretend that person's going to visit their dying mother in the hospital. Say a prayer, get over it. What's the big deal?
It's great. Do you like the Ho'oponopono The saying, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Do you know that? Yeah.
Great saying. I think some of the best sayings, I collect quotes. And in my medicine courses, when people come back from a break, instead of scolding them and saying, shut off your beepers, write your name on the syllabus, we don't do that. We do it on day one, once done. And we have quotes. And I love quotes. So, Mark Twain's quote, the two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Right?
Yeah.
Each one has a singular purpose in life. Saint
You
Francis
quoted.
of Assisi,
Go ahead. Sorry.
he said, for it is in the giving that we receive. I went to Assisi with my wife. I had to go there. And what an amazing individual. And one of my favorite quotes, again, is from him. He said, preach the gospel at all times. If necessary, use words.
Oh,
How good is that?
that's
Again,
really
by
good.
example. Is that really good?
That's really
Preach the
good.
gospel at all times. If necessary, use words. How good is that?
Yeah, live by example again. You say in the book, happiness is a byproduct of being present to witness your life. I love that. Being present to witness your life and ultimately identifying your life's purpose. So, and I know with my channel, we do meditations to help us become more present, right? And so how would you say we can become more present and aware of our own lives?
I think it will automatically happen if we meditate. It just, the analogy is there's a beautiful tree. I'm looking at a beautiful tree outside in the backyard right now. And if there's a branch on the top or a collection of leaves that are not healthy, I don't take a huge hose pipe and water it. I have to nourish the root. And then the whole tree will blossom, right? And that's what happens with meditation. And the other analogy is it's unfolding your own potential. It's like you're going in an elevator. The elevator goes from the ground floor or the basement to the 100th floor. I may hop on the 20th floor. You may already more evolved. You hop on the 40th, somebody on the 60th. We're all going to ascend. We're going to all unfold our potential. So I think if we meditate, it takes care of a lot of things in our life. The silence, the anchored, you're more creative, you have better relationships. So that, I think, is the basis of a lot of it. My brother, Deepak Chopra, was once asked, I think by Oprah, what's the difference between prayer and meditation? He said, in prayer, we speak to God. In meditation, God speaks to us.
I love that. I my mom recently did one of my meditations, and she said, Joey, she's like, this was just like praying. Like, I just feel like I was just with God. Yes. And she just had never really made that connection before. And she's like, I'm going to start doing this every morning. It's like praying. It's just like, this connection that happens. And I was like, that's beautiful, Mom. That's beautiful.
Absolutely. There was a very spiritual teacher from India, Swami Chinmayananda. He actually, when he came to Boston, stayed at our home, because my parents knew him, went to in Delhi to his courses. And he had a following all over the world. One time somewhere in San Francisco, he gives a talk, 1,000 people. At the end, somebody goes up to the mic, says, Swamiji, would you please define God? So he looks and he says, to define God would be to defile God. How can we contain God in a definition? But if you insist, let me offer you a definition. Man minus ego is equal to God.
That's really good. I'm going to use that one. That's good.
Yeah, but Mother Teresa of the world didn't do it to get the Nobel Prize. She would bathe the wounds of the lepers in Calcutta and see the face of Christ. How? That's a saint. No ego. Amazing saint.
Well, and just the idea too that you allude to a lot in your book and in your stories is it really is happiness and purpose comes from giving, right? Giving, and not even always knowing what effect you're going to have on people across. Some of your work, you have no idea how much you've affected someone's life on the other side of the world, and you don't, your ego would say, oh, how many people like have I been able to help? But like, again, that God in you says it doesn't, like, I'm doing it, I'm giving because
Yeah,
that's
it's a
what I'm here
privilege.
to
How
do.
did I get so lucky to be in a position to do it? It's amazing. I was asked to give a short talk on philanthropy at a charity. And I said, philanthropy, let me define it for you. I've been thinking about it. Philanthropy is love for humanity. As simple as that.
Mm.
And I said it's one of three T's. A lot of people equate philanthropy with giving money, going to a fundraiser, bidding in an auction, writing a check. That's one. That's treasure. The second one is time. The third one is talent. If you donate or treasure time or talent, you're philanthropic.
Oh, that's good.
Like there's an amazing guy in our country by the name of Chuck Feeney. He started all these duty-free shops in all the airports. He's made billions. Some years ago, he was 83 years of age with a bad knee, with a walking stick, walking in the grounds of Trinity College in Ireland, where he had donated $130 million. Nobody knew who's this old man with a walking stick. So he says to his wife, I figured out pretty much how long we're going to live. Everything's paid off. We need 5 million to live comfortably the rest of our lives. The rest of my billions, our billions, we're donating to charity. He's coined the term giving while living.
Yes.
If it's in your will, it can become contested, be in the courts for years and years. Some nephew shows up or niece or whatever. Bill Gates has referred to Chuck Feeney as one of the greatest philanthropists of our time. Amazing guy.
Giving while living. That's beautiful. Yeah, why wait? Why wait?
I wait. You know, I have a friend, a fellow golfer, and he's amazingly generous, amazingly generous. I see him all the time sitting at the deck after a round of golf, and one of the members had a brain cancer. He was in hospice. He calls him. It's a beautiful day. Can I send an Uber? Have you come over? Please join us for a drink or a coffee. And then somebody else, I overhear talking, and the guy's having difficulty paying his mortgage. And this guy says, Tanya, I'll take care of your mortgage for 6 months. You don't have to pay me back. So I said, John, you're amazingly generous, and you do it so quietly. He owns the biggest jewelry store, 3 stories high in Boston. And he said to me, Sanjiv, have you ever seen a Brinks truck behind a hearse? What a visual. You can't take it with you.
You can't take it with you.
Giving while living. I've used it now, not.
A Brinks truck. I love the visual of that.
The visual, right? Have you ever
Yeah,
seen a Brinks truck behind a hearse?
I love that. So I know what's a simple exercise that can help one that's saying, I just don't know what my purpose is. Well, I don't know why I'm here. There's really no point to life. Like, or, just like,
So I think,
what's,
I enjoy the question. I think finding your purpose can come in one of two ways. We will often witness something really tragic, sorrowful, but the person witnessing it, if they have the grit, the compassion, the love, the fortitude to say, this is unacceptable, I'm going to make a slight difference. And they start, and before you know it, becomes their purpose for life for 50 years. Papa Jaime is a guy from Colombia, Jaime Aramello. I met him, he's my age. I consider him 18, 20 years ago at a leadership course at Kellogg. And I consider him not only a friend, but a mentor and somebody who inspires me. 28 years of age, he's trying to get a street corner in Bogota, and across the street there's a sewer. And these orphans live there with the muck and the dirt. And he's saying, I should do something to help these kids. A 7-year-old beautiful girl emerges, and she's smiling at him. And as they're having this interchange, a car comes around the corner, stops in the middle of the street, window rolls down, somebody tosses a toy, the car recedes. This girl has never possessed a toy. She comes running up to the middle of the street. It's a yellow school bus, Fisher Price toy. picks it up. She's beaming with joy, looking at Jaime Aramillo. And as they're having this interchange, speeding truck comes around the corner and smashes her into oblivion. So he says, this is it. This is my calling in life. I'm going to adopt these kids, house them, school them, feed them. He's adopted 52,000 orphans. So he's a national hero. Hence the term, Papa. I said, Papa, how do you pay for it? How much staff do you have? Sanjiv, I have 150 staff. I have a bakery. The only thing we make is cookies. And I've convinced all the restaurants in Medellin and Bogota, next to the cash register as people are leaving, there's a cookie jar and a shoebox with a slit. People grab a cookie, they drop change. I get 50% of my needs that way. I said, listen, what about the other 50%? I'm a motivational speaker. I speak all over Latin America and I plow my honorarium into the foundation. I said, come on, Papa. That doesn't cut it. I know what motivational speakers get. He says, you're right. Sanjiv, every time I need money, out of the blue, somebody helps me. He says, 3 weeks ago, I needed 41,000 US dollars to pay my loans, electricity bills, staff salaries. So I go to 3 banks and they turn me down. Papa, you already got loans with us at the lowest rate. Don't even tell anyone, but we can't give you more. So I'm coming back to the office and there's a street woman across the street. Papa Jaime, he's a national hero, crosses the street, gives him a hug. He says, are you hungry? She sort of nods. He says, come to the office. So she's in the office, drinking coffee, eating cookies, and he's on the phone calling 3 other bankers, and she can tell that he's being turned on. So she looks at him, says, Papa, how much money do you need? He says, Sanjiv, I told her I need 41,000 US dollars. She smiles and she says, I give it to you. He said, Sanjiv, I said to myself, she's cuckoo. She's a street woman. She opened her purse. She had $60,000. Her son had sent her the money. Go to a bank, move into a house, sign a piece of paper. She says, I'll save some other money. I'm okay. Weather's good. I can move later. You need it. Your children need it. Take it now. No questions asked. You can return it if you want, when you want. He said, that kind of thing happens to me all the time. And if you see his face, Joey, you'll see the bliss in his eyes. His children have grown up to become nurses, doctors, accountants, computer scientists. He showed me the photograph of a young man dressed in impeccable white with a tennis racket, flanked by Pete Sampras and Agassi, junior national champion of Colombia tennis. They've grown up to become surgeons, and many of them are donating to his foundation. He found his purpose in life witnessing, 40-some years ago, the tragic death of this 7-year-old beautiful girl. But the other way, which Adrian, my colleague, and I teach, is we tell people take 33 by 5 cards. Every day, at the end of the day, write down 3 or 4 things you did and give it a rating from 1 to 10. 1, you were miserable. 10, if you're lucky, you were in bliss. There'll be lots of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8s. At the end of a month, line them up, strike off everything between 1 and 5. Look at 6, 7, 8, 9. Made you happy, gave you joy, maybe bliss. You know what? Your purpose is lurking in there.
I love that.
Simple. No tech.
It's simple. And that's the thing too, is everything is awareness. And I think that it seems like a simple exercise, but if you really commit to doing that for 30 days, you're going to find things that we live 95% of the same day over and over. So, I mean, if you start to really take note of how you're living your life, like, why am I doing that? That's a 3. Like, every time it's a 3. Why am I doing it? And just simple awareness.
I'm passionate about music, or I'm passionate about serving people, or I'm passionate about making me happy. There has to be a way for this can be my purpose.
But also talk about how challenging yourself can also. So sometimes it's like, like the first time I did a podcast, which I've only done a handful at this point, but I was terrified, because I was, I had never done it before. And I was like, I'm getting out of my comfort zone. But I was like, something's telling me, like, I love to learn. Like you said, being a lifelong learner is amazing. And talking to you, for example, and Debbie and other people, I'm learning, and it's like, I want to do this, but man, it was a challenge for me because,
for all of us, it's a challenge. I think one of the keys is having the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
What if I fail? Success is going from failure to failure without lack of enthusiasm. That's the definition.
Say that again.
Right? Success is going from failure to failure without lack of enthusiasm. Edison was asked, how did it feel to fail 9,999 times before you figured out the Edison bulb? He said, I didn't fail. I figured out 9,999 ways in which it doesn't work. When he was 57, his factory burned down and his friends and family were commiserating with him. He said, why are you sympathizing with me? All my mistakes are burned down. Now I can start anew. Talk about attitude.
Oh, attitude.
Right? You have to have the courage. You have to have, I often call it the 3 C's: courage, confidence, conviction.
Courage, confidence,
and if you
conviction.
have friends who support you, and if before you're doing something, rehearse it. Before I gave that TED talk, I invited 8 of my friends. And I said, I'm going to pretend I'm on the red circle, 18 minutes. It gave each one of them a notebook or a piece of paper and a pen and said, critique it, but don't interrupt me and they all gave me amazing advice. Like Dharma, I was first talking about the definition. No, start with the story. You have too many slides. You have 10 slides. What if you miss time? You're clicking and you're not supposed to look back at the screen. Just have 4 slides. Tell stories. Steve Jobs said, the most powerful people in the world, storytellers. It's hardwired in our DNA.
Yes.
Right? If you see an old cave painting, 5,000 years of age, etching, and it shows the father is collecting the wood, the mother is cooking food, and the grandfather is sitting there with 3 kids in a semicircle telling stories.
Well, again, it creates those images. It creates the stories, create the images, and it's beautiful. Well, you're a wonderful storyteller. So
I work at it.
Yeah.
I got, confession. I give 50 to 70 talks a year. Sometimes there's 7,000 people in Anaheim, clinicians, and I tell stories and I tell about Papa Jaime and people are crying and I get a standing ovation. I got pompous. I would go meet with the AV guy 30 minutes before, click, 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 all good. Okay, I'm all set. Then I read a book years ago by Miguel Ruiz. It's called The 4 Agreements. Amazing book, okay?
Yes.
Little paperback based on ancient Toltec wisdom. I think he was on Oprah twice. It's been translated into 50 languages, sold 10 million copies. And the first agreement is always be impeccable with your word. Second one is don't take things personally. Third one is don't make assumptions. But the fourth one also blew me. Said always do your best. I said, am I doing my best? No, you're getting arrogant. And now before I give a talk, I'm going to be in Northwestern Chicago as a visiting professor next week, and I'm giving a talk on leadership. I looked at it 2 days ago, and I improved it. Better story, better slide, better visual. We can always do better. Am I doing my best?
I just recently did, I'm doing a series on the 4 agreements in my meditations.
Look at that.
So I've done 5 videos now so I'm back around. So I've made meditations out of like doing your best and meditating on that. So that book is amazing. Yeah. And it's simple. Again, the simplicity.
It's so simple, right?
It's hard to do, but
a lot of people believe in affirmations and they wake up in the morning and they say, today will be a great day. I will have success. I'll be happy. I'll serve, whatever, right? It has value. But what I tell people, and it's based on neuroscience, is that if you say the affirmation at night, as your head is hitting the pillow, the brain figures out what to do during the sleep. So the affirmation that Adrian and I taught, and teach, and I share it all the time with family and friends. Next thing, they make 3 copies. They have one on their iPhone, they have one on their night table, they have one on their fridge. And after 3 days, you don't even have to see it, you remember it. And the affirmation is, I expand in abundance, success, happiness, and love every day. I expand in
I
abundance,
expand.
success, happiness, and love every day, and inspire others to do the same. The inspire others to do the same is not from arrogance. It's my duty. It's my dharma.
I love it.
So simple.
So simple.
It works.
I love it. So I would love for you to go ahead and say what your purpose is. And has it ever changed? Like, have you ever wanted to tweak it?
Oh, it's very interesting. I used to think about success and happiness, and I wrote books. And this same friend of mine, Adrian, about 18, 20 years ago, we were sitting on the deck having coffee. My wife is in New York with the kids and grandkids. And he looked at me and he said, Sanjiv, you won this award. You wrote this book. I said, Adrian, where is this conversation going? You don't know all this. Why are you bringing it up? And he looked at me and he said, what is your purpose in life? Wow. Left. I sat on the deck and I wrote down my purpose. And now everything I do has to be aligned to my purpose. It doesn't matter how much fame, fortune, if it's not aligned, it's a detour. And my purpose is a little long, but my purpose in life is to fulfill my dharma, to teach medicine, leadership, happiness, to do it grounded in humility, with an ardent desire to learn every single day, to celebrate with gratitude my family, my friends, my colleagues, my patients, and my students who inspire me in countless ways, and in some small measure, inspire everyone I meet on this amazing life journey.
That's beautiful. Well, you've inspired me.
I have a friend, Susie Klein, and a beautiful lady. She and her husband and I play golf. We travel all over the world. We belong to the same country club. And I asked her purpose, and I put it in the book. The other people, Gina Wild, my co-author, and I have our purpose with our names. The others are anonymous. And she said, Sanjiv, my purpose in life is to be the best mother and grandmother, to be a loyal friend, and to tend my garden. It's beautiful.
Yes.
I have another friend. We've been friends for 11 years, and the whole family now. And she and her husband, Henry Cardenas, and Mark Anthony, the Latin American singer, started a foundation called Maestro Cares. And they're building orphanages all over. Started with one in La Romana, Dominican Republic, now 25 around the world. And she's 6 months into our friendship. She said, Sanjiv, help me define my purpose. Because I talk about it. I said, Elena, I've only known you for 6 months. I can't. But send me something. I'll reflect on it. And a week later, I'll send it back to you. And if you like it, keep it. Otherwise, throw it. So she sent me like a page. And I said, I get it. Right away. I, Elena Sotomayor, my purpose in life is to have exuberant compassion and love, not only for my family and friends, but also those less fortunate and in dire need. She said, you hit it on the head. I was crying. My mother was crying because she has now, she has no children of her own. But she says, I have 6,000 children. When she travels, I said, what do they call you? They said, they call me mom. I said, what do they call your father, Edison, who was the architect for the orphanage? They call him grandpa. Okay, you found your purpose.
That's wonderful. I love it.
Right.
Well, I've been working on writing one myself after reading the book and being inspired by you with it. So this isn't set in stone, because I'm like her. I need to send you a page and maybe you can, but mine's pretty short. It just says, live daily according to the golden rule while helping others discover the depthness of their body, mind, and spirit.
Oh, I love it. I'm trying to think of a quote by Benjamin Disraeli, used to be Prime Minister of England. And it's to the effect of better than something to the tune of better than giving money to others. It is, or treasures to others. It is better to work with them to reveal their own,
reveal their own treasures. Yes.
Much more beautifully than what
yes. I'm inspired by you with just this idea of purpose and happiness, bringing those two things together. And health in general can help, your health, which I know has been your career, is helping people with their health, and just how it all comes together. It all works together, right?
Yeah, and you're doing that. So, I think friends, forgiveness for others, gratitude. Those are the four keys to happiness. But for us to have sustained happiness, be happy most of the time, we have to find our purpose and live it. I've done 4 radio shows in New Zealand, and the last time there are 2 guys who interview me every 6 months here. Last time they said, can we introduce you as Dr. Happy? I said, oh my God, it's the best title I've ever got.
Oh, that's great.
So in New Zealand, I may be known as Dr. Happy.
I love it.
The country, Bhutan, small country in the foothills of the Himalayas, every year it's in the top 10 happiest countries. Now, it's a small country. Their ruler, 40 years ago, said, we don't care about gross domestic product. We care about gross happiness product. They have a ministry of happiness. They track every person's happiness level every year and want to make it better and better. I was in Denmark. People in Denmark are very, very happy. They work 30 hours. They have national health coverage, free education. They partake in an exercise called Huga, which is the informal gathering, cozy, convivial. So if I'm in your neighborhood, I don't pick up the phone and call you, Joy, are you at home? Can I drop by for coffee? I simply ring the doorbell. And you're there and he says, Sanjiv, come on in. We sit by the fireplace, have hot chocolate and talk about life. It's also done in Norway. So I went to Denmark with my wife and another couple, had the best time. And then like 3 months later, I come back and I read, they have opened the first museum of happiness in the world.
That's excellent.
Everything has to do with happiness. Now I need to go back.
If just the rest of the world could kind of catch on to that.
Between the ages of 6 and 16, when kids go to school, every week there's a mandatory 1-hour class on compassion.
Oh.
How good
Why don't we
is
do
that?
that here? Why don't we do that
here? I mean, making kids tolerant and making them understanding. We're all the same. It's unbelievable. There's so much good happening in different parts of the world, and we need to adopt that. We need to adopt that.
I agree. Well, hey, you have to come down to Southwest Florida and play some golf with me sometime.
I do that.
I heard you mention it a couple times that you're a golfer, so we got great golf courses down here.
True.
Well, thank you, Dr. Happy, Sanjiv. I am now going to refer to you as Dr. Happy.
Okay. All the best. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Right. All the best.